So everybody is probably wondering, was the new Dragon Ball Super movie any good? Because obviously, ever since its initial, announcement to the fact that it was going to be basically fully CGI, and if you look up images on it, you might see maybe some wonky looking images or whatever, and you might get an overall impression of Dragon Ball Superhero, quite a name, I'll talk about that in a bit. You might get the impression that it could potentially be a bad movie, because, let's be honest, when we think of CGI, and we think of anime, CGI typically just does look good. Let's pull up an example here. If I was to type in Berserk CGI, you would instantly see right here on the screen just how, awful CGI can look. And obviously, this is a bad example, and there's good examples like Beastars. Beastars is really good CGI, but most of the time, when there is, let's say, CGI for an anime, it typically looks ugly. It's the truth. It 100% is the truth. Anyone that kind of, says the opposite is kind of lying to you. But there is cases where CGI looks good. And so, the question, obviously, everybody's wondering about if you have yet to see this movie, is the CGI good? Personally, as someone that has seen a lot of bad in CGI, and I've seen some bottom-of-the-barrel stuff, like some really bad stuff, like X-Arm and all of that, I will say that Dragon Ball Super's CGI is actually incredible. It is. Okay, let's put this in perspective. If you have, let's say, ever played, a Dragon Ball game, let's look at, not even Fighter Z, no, let's look at, Xenoverse 2 cutscene. If the, certain cutscenes, in-game cutscenes that are, CGI, like Xenoverse, right here, the cutscenes in Xenoverse look really good. They do. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's issues. There's areas that can be touched up upon. But, Xenoverse and a lot of the Dragon Ball games, even when they're brought into CGI and there's cutscenes, etc., they look pretty freaking good. They do. Obviously, there could be a little bit more done to it, but they do look good. And when I look at, let's say, Dragon Ball Superhero, it's more of a amped up game version of CGI. Now, it's way better than the games in terms of look department, movement, lip syncing, everything. It is definitely better in every way than, let's just say, a game. But I'm just saying, if you're someone that has played Dragon Ball games, like you've seen Xenoverse, etc., then you're gonna probably be fine with the way Dragon Ball Superhero looks. I'm just gonna be honest. As someone that's played pretty much most of the Dragon Ball games, besides, let's say, the mobile games, I'm a big fan of this design. I, at first, didn't really like it. Okay, when the series first began, when this movie began, and I was watching it, I was a little bit off-put by it, because there is a segment right at the beginning of the movie that kind of shows 2D animation, and it kind of shows the different villains, all the stuff leading up to Cell being defeated by Gohan, and there's, this whole thing where it shows, this reanimated footage. You get to see, Perfect Cell and all that. Let's see if, they show Perfect Cell, in this, actually. There might be an image someone might have captured or shown. There's Cell Max, actually, which I'll talk about that in a second. But they basically show, a new updated version of Perfect Cell, just the colors and all that. It's really hyper-realistic looking. I really like the way Cell looks in the movie. And when you see that 2D, and then it shifts to 3D, instantly oh man, you could see the CGI. But then, as you get later on in the movie, about maybe 3 minutes later into the movie, there's this giant car scene, and hopefully I can actually pull up an image. Car scene. There's a scene where Dr. Hedo is, in the car, and he's traveling, getting kind of recruited into the Red Ribbon Army. And I'll talk about the whole synopsis and plot in a second, but the entire scene is more of a demonstration of the movement and what CGI is really capable of in a setting like Dragon Ball. And it was done really well. You had this very long conversation that lasted about 4 minutes, but it was very engaging because you saw a lot of the characters moving, doing different actions to the things outside the windows with the cars moving. And obviously, in a 2D setting, this could also also be done, but it's very difficult to constantly have the same attention to detail with all these things going on. With CGI, it makes it a lot easier, especially if there is a lot of focus and attention to detail to CGI. And I feel like there is a lot of moments throughout the entirety of this movie that really amplify Dragon Ball to a new level that's not really been experienced before. The only time it's really ever been tapped into, I would say, is through the games. And I love the movement of the characters. There is a lot of life going on in the background. Like, there's scenes where characters might be fighting or whatever, and if you look in the background, you'll see things going on, little things going on that just are funny, or maybe something serious going on behind the scenes you wouldn't have noticed if you actually didn't pay attention to it. And I love that. It's a really good movie in usage of CGI, and it's very clear that this movie was experimental for Toei Animation and everyone else that worked on Dragon Ball Super Superheroes movie. It was an experimental movie just to see if CGI could be done in a Dragon Ball setting, and if people would kind of accept it, warm up to it. Because obviously most people's reactions would be on the negative side. It's the truth. So, as someone that is obviously always been about, like, I don't hate CGI, but it's used in such bad ways most of the time, I'm very, very impressed by the movie. So if that is one of the big things that's holding you back from even watching it, give it a chance, because I will say, as someone that has, like, watched the trailers, etc. of it, there is some good segments like this image right here within the trailers, but it doesn't give you enough to really experience what the movie has to offer and really get some time to understand the flow of how the movie is structured. I think if you sit down and you watch it, your opinion will probably change and you will probably enjoy it. Now, if you just don't like Dragon Ball, then obviously you're just not going to like the movie. That's the truth. So, okay, with that out of the way, let's just talk about it. So, the Dragon Ball superhero movie. It is a very, very different movie. Because most of the movies, like, that's focused on Dragon Ball is focused on Vegeta and Goku. It's the truth. It is 100% the truth, and they're the main kind of stars of the story, so it makes sense. But when you look at, this movie, it's not about Goku and Vegeta, and yes, they do appear in the movie. Like, there's images, they showed it in trailers, and I feel like the trailers are very misleading, actually, for that, kind of trying to make it seem like Goku and Vegeta is really heavily in the movie, when that's really not the case. There's, like, only really 2 scenes they are in the movie. They're after the credit scene, the end credit scene, and kind of towards the beginning of the movie, when Bulma is trying to contact Whis and try to contact Vegeta and Goku to come back to the planet Earth. That's really the only time we see the characters of Goku and Vegeta, and even Broly. Yes, even Broly. This is a fake image, so don't worry. This is a completely fake fan-made image. But even Broly appears in the movie, and he's training on, Beerus's planet, and it's a really cool segment. It's really fun. There's a lot of comedy, and I'll dive into it in just a second more about that. But overall, it is not about Goku, Vegeta, or Broly, Beerus, Whis, or anything. It is about Gohan, Piccolo, and Pan. And I think that's a really, really cool thing about this movie, because, like, this is very misleading, and I really appreciate how it's a Gohan featured movie. And we get Pan and Piccolo. And in all honesty, if you take a look at this, it's not really a Gohan movie. It's actually, I would say, more of like a Piccolo movie. Like, I think Piccolo, in terms of this Dragon Ball superhero movie, had more spotlight and more focus than any other character. And yes, Gohan was a big part of, this movie. And I do think that the advertisement definitely was correct with showing that he was. But if there's any character that truly had the spotlight, I would say it's Piccolo. And I actually really appreciate that, because out of all these years, out of all of, like, the Dragon Ball movies up to this very point, I don't think Piccolo's really had, like, main center stage in a very, very long time. Like, maybe the very early movies of the Dragon Ball series, but overall, he's never really had, like, the front center, basically, like, the protag of the movie, and I like that. I really like Piccolo. I've always felt he's one of my favorite characters, and being able to see him have, like, a frontline center spot, being able to actually be there at the end fight and actually play a major role in the turnout against the villain, bringing the villain down and having to help out Gohan, etc. It's a really, really good focus of the movie. Now, let's talk about the general plot. What is it about, and is it something that obviously fans would enjoy? Well, the first thought that comes to mind when I think of the plot and I think about what the movie is entirely, it's fun. It's a very fun movie. I think, if you're someone that really likes Dragon Ball comedy, like some of the comedy in Dragon Ball and some of the funnier moments, you're probably going to absolutely adore this movie. And if you're someone that kind of likes a little bit more of, like, let's say, the Ginyu Force or maybe Great Saiyaman or some elements of that, you might also enjoy that aspect, because Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, which are these characters here as you can see on the poster, they're androids that were created by Dr. Hedo, which is basically like the great-grandson or whatever of Dr. Gero, the one that made 17, 18, 16 Cell, etc. of the Red Ribbon Army. He made all of them. And Dr. Hedo is kind of like this main antagonist of this movie. Like, he's someone that is creating androids, etc. But there is a twist to him, and I think it's very fascinating. Basically, Dr. Hedo as a character, he is someone that is, like, I have him pulled up here. He's someone that obviously creates androids, and obviously he kind of turns out to be like the antagonist of the movie because he's creating the androids to fight against Piccolo, Gohan, etc. But he actually isn't necessarily evil like Dr. Gero. He basically feels like the Red Ribbon Army and his grandpa, basically Dr. Gero, was evil, Red Ribbon Army was evil, and he likes the hero aesthetic. He likes heroes, he likes the way heroes look, and he doesn't really want to support the Red Ribbon Army because when he thinks about everything he knows about them, he views them as villains. And so the entire first part of the movie is basically like the son of Commander Red trying to recruit Dr. Hedo into the Red Ribbon Army and get him to start working on new androids, which is aka Gamma 1, Gamma 2, and eventually Cell Max. And Cell Max is an interesting character I'm going to talk about. But, the point is I like how Dr. Hedo isn't necessarily evil, and that at the end of the movie, he does get some form of redemption, and he actually joins Capsule Corporation. He joins Bulma to be able to work for her, which means that going forward within the story of Dragon Ball Super, there's going to be potentially new androids that are created, and there might be one day a possibility that even Cell himself could officially return. Yes, our Cell, maybe Perfect Cell, could officially return if he is indeed wanting to create androids, etc. and something even similar to Cell. But the point is I do like Dr. Hedo, even though he kind of came out of nowhere. I think he's cool, and his overall bloodline as well. Come to find out, Android 21, yeah, Android 21, if you know anything about Fighter Z, etc., and she made waves, Android 21 is officially canon in the movie. Like, she's shown next to Dr. Gero, and Dr. Hedo is basically like a descendant of her, at least from what I got from the opening of the movie. So it implies that Android 21 exists, and that she is real, and maybe one day we might even get more spotlight on elements of Android 21, and I hope that actually happens. That's really cool. That was a nice little detail thrown into the movie for the game fans, and I hope there's more kind of done to that. We also get kind of a little bit more confirmation that, Android 16 was created after Dr. Gero's son. You get to see that at the beginning of the movie as well. Really cool stuff. That really goes back into the canon, some of the comments that Akira Toriyama has said over the years about certain individual characters, giving names like, Lapis Lazuli for Android 17 and 18, to finding out more about 16, how he's the son of Dr. Gero, different things like that. Good stuff. There's some really good lore implications that are thrown into the movie, even to, like, the upgrading of the dragon, like Shinron, pulling out, like, the Shinron, like, the stone make of Shinron, and, like, pouring this mysterious liquid on it to upgrade it and give it more potential. It's something we kind of only saw once back in the Cell Saga, so I think that there is just so much lore implications in the movie. It's fun. It's really, really fun to kind of go back to some of the roots of Dragon Ball that isn't explored as much as they really should have. Now, in terms of more of the plot, obviously, which I went a little bit on a tangent, Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 are basically androids modeled after hero designs, which falls in line with what Dr. Hedo wants, because he was tricked into joining the Red Ribbon. He thinks that Bulma and her entire corporation's actually the villains, and so he creates these hero androids that actually want to save the world, save the day, and take down the villainous group that is Goku's group, Gohan, etc. And so Gamma 1, Gamma 2 are heroes. They think they're heroes, and they have justice and everything, and it's really cool getting to see that theme, because they're not evil. And eventually, as the movie continues to kind of spiral out of control, more things keep going on, Gamma 1, Gamma 2 come to a realization that Piccolo, Gohan, Bulma, etc. aren't evil, and that Dr. Hedo and they were lied to, that they're actually working for a villainous organization, and they do help out with the final threat of the movie, which is Cell Max, which I guess let's talk about that big can of worms. So Cell Max, there's probably a lot of images of him if I look it up. Basically, he is a very different character. Like, okay, so if you expected, like, perfect Cell, you're not getting perfect Cell. If you expected the original Cell, like the Cell that you can see right here, this Cell that we grew up with in Dragon Ball Z, you are not getting that Cell. That is not happening. And it is disappointing, I will admit. As someone that is a huge fan of Cell, I really enjoy Cell's character, and I loved him even more after watching Team 4 Star's version of Cell. I think that Cell is a really good character, and I talked about him back when I was reviewing Dragon Ball Super's anime when it was coming out, that I felt like Cell would have been a better choice than, let's say, Frieza, if, you know, Buu couldn't be in the Tournament of Power. And there's many that made videos on that talking about that, so I don't need to rehash that entire point, but the point is, Cell is a very fascinating character, and I think that he has a lot of potential to just really fit in with the entire cast, because he has a lot of just, you know, I guess, he has different frictions with other characters. Like, he could really get some things going with some characters, because he is affiliated with the entire cast, because he has all of their DNA inside of him. So when you see Cell Max, you see his name dropped within the movie, it gets you excited. You're like, oh crap, Cell. Like, I'm going to get to see Cell again. That's the first impressions you're going to get. You're going to be like, oh my goodness, we're going to actually get Cell updated and all of that. It's going to be incredible. That is probably the thought process many will have. But when he's finally awakened and revealed, it's not the Cell we know and love. It is kind of like a fusion between second form and final form Cell, basically semi-perfect and perfect Cell, and he looks more like his second form than even his perfect form, which I think automatically is a huge downgrade. I mean, like, seriously, like, when you look at the Cells, he's got a perfect jawline there on, you know, perfect Cell, and I think that the first form Cell just looks very eerie and creepy, and I think that's really cool. And yes, the second Cell is interesting because he's like a cross between like a bug and more human looking, but I never really liked the second form Cell, because it's like, yes, he came in, and the only thing I really like about him when it was in Dragon Ball Z was when Vegeta was just beating the absolute crap out of him. That was hilarious to me. But the point is that second form Cell's never really been my favorite. And the fact that, you know, that design was chosen for obviously Cell Max is also a huge disappointment, because it's also the least liked version of Cell that, in my personal opinion. But anyways, his overall character is, how can I put it, blank. Like, he is pretty much Bio Broly. If anyone had the time to actually sit down and watch Bio Broly that came out years ago, then that's basically what Cell Max is, with better writing. Obviously, anything will be better than Bio Broly movie, but, overall, Cell Max is, in its own way, that plotline. Basically, an abomination version of Cell is created, and here it is. He has no mind, he's basically a wild animal, and they gotta put him down. And he's a little bit bigger, like a kaiju, pretty much. That is kind of the gist of what Cell Max is. Now, it's kind of explained early on why this is a thing. For one, obviously, Dr. Hedo, he mentions that Cell's designs were based off of Dr. Giro's works, basically his old research data, different things like that, so he wasn't able to perfectly replicate everything his grandfather did, because he didn't have all the data, and it makes a lot of sense. His lab was destroyed, Trunks and Krillin made sure the lab was destroyed, and it takes 20 years pretty much for Cell to really reach that stage of being really mature enough to go out on his own and try to find 17 and 18. And it's clear that the overall design of Cell Max, it's like one of the things they lost with the research is that they didn't realize that Cell needed to absorb the androids, like 17 and 18, because one of the big indicators, which this is kind of like fan art of him, but his tail right here is a perfect example. The tail on the bottom right here, which is, you guys probably can't actually see that, just look really close at this image here, there's like a bowling ball or like a mace type thing on his tail. Pretty much, he has that, in the movie. And it shows that his tail wasn't designed to absorb 17 and 18 because obviously they didn't even know. They didn't know what to do for that. They didn't even know what his tail probably was for. So Dr. Hedo just threw on a random modification and that was basically it. So I think that there is definitely, nods to the fact that they were unaware of what Cell really was or what he could do. Because, even in the movie, they don't show, all the things that he was actually capable of. We know our Cell, he's capable of, the Spirit Bomb, Kamehameha, Special Beam Cannon, the Multiform Technique, basically everything that our cast of characters know. But you don't really get to see that, which I think also is probably a part of the lost data that Dr. Hedo lost when he tried to replicate his grandfather's work. And I think that's cool because they do try to basically say, yeah, this isn't our Cell. This is not the Cell we know, and also he was awoken too quickly. So basically, at the end of the plot, once Gamma 1, Gamma 2, they find out they're being lied to, they join the side, and you have Commander Red's son come in, and it's like, we gotta awaken Cell Max, and Cell Max gets awoken, and obviously we have the final fight of the movie. And the final fight, overall, if you look past, some of the problems with it, if you want a Cell with a mind, it's a good fight. You have, every character in the movie come together and try to fight him off. You have even 18 make an appearance, which I think is really cool. I'm really happy that 18 made an appearance and got to see Cell. It was a really nice little interaction. Krillin was there. We got Gamma 1, Gamma 2, even Gotenks. Even Gotenks appeared in the movie. We got to see a little bit more of a adultish version of Gotenks, like a teen Gotenks, which is cool, even though it wasn't a perfect, fusion, because they were the fat version of them. I think it was really cool to get to see that. I mean, we have, Piccolo get a new form, which is called Orange Piccolo. We have a new form of Gohan that's called Gohan Beast. I mean, it's a really good fighting segment. It's CGI and everything. It's really cinematic, and it's a good conclusion to a movie. But once again, I say, if you're looking for the original Cell, you will probably be disappointed at that. That will be a huge disappointment for you. Now, besides that, there is other great moments too. Like I said, there is moments with Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, and I'm gonna show up an image of Gamma 1 or Gamma 2. Gamma 2 probably is one of my favorite characters of the entire movie. And the reason for that is because he has a fight with Piccolo very early on in the movie. And he fights Piccolo, and you have these sound effects up here, like kaboom and all that. And Piccolo literally makes a comment in the middle of the movie while he's fighting Gamma 2. He's like, why can I see his sound effects? And, little comments like that go a long way, because it's funny. It's literally funny. It's using the CGI to its fullest. And basically, the reason why he probably gets to see his sound effects is obviously for comedy value. But probably since he's an android, he has probably holograms or something coming out of him to add those sound effects behind him, and you do get to see different angles of that, of his sound effects behind Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, and I think that's just cool. It's a nice little attention to detail and utilizing CGI in the proper way. And even the sound effects, if we're into that, we're talking about that, there's multiple times where, let's say, Piccolo or Gohan are fighting Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 and they're punching them, and you'll literally hear a metal sound, hitting literal raw metal. And obviously, if you look at their character designs and movement, they are metal looking. And so you would assume if they got hit, it would sound like metal. And I think that's a nice little attention to detail that adds a lot of character to the movie. And I think that's what really had the movie so much going for it. There was so much movement, it felt fluid, and even the sound effects were just top notch when it came to so many different moments. There's a lot of scenes Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, messing with each other in the background that you could easily miss if you're just paying attention to the central plot when, let's say, Dr. Hedo is talking. You will miss when Gamma 1 and Gamma 2 are just, do rock, paper, scissors or random things in the background. I find that really cool. So, overall, in terms of how I feel about the Dragon Ball Superhero movie, besides the name obviously being way too long, I think that it's a legitimately good movie. Like, I think that the movie is definitely worth a shot of watching. If you're someone that likes the games, you're someone that likes the comedy of Dragon Ball, you're gonna fall in love with this movie. It's fun, and it's a different adventure that isn't just Goku and Vegeta. If you want that, you will enjoy this movie. And I could not recommend it enough, honestly. Even some of the Pan segments, which, oh my goodness. Like, I'm sad that Pan didn't have a lot of focus, but there was a lot of good stuff with Pan in the movie. Like, basically kind of the homage to Videl learning how to fly. That's what happened to Pan. Pan started off not really knowing how to fly, and then she learned how to fly at the end of the movie. And I like that. There's little things like that that kind of pay homage to Dragon Ball Z. And, you know, it's a really cute movie, and it's funny. Just everything. Like, oh yeah, here's like a sound effect scene. Like, I just love this. It's so funny. It's legitimately funny. I can't get enough of this movie, and I can't wait to watch it again when I can finally, you know, get a Blu-ray copy or watch it digital, etc. It's gonna be fun. But, yeah. So, overall, what I would rate this movie, I would give it a solid maybe 8.5 out of 10. It's solid. It's a solid movie, and I am very thankful that this was done. This experimental movie was done, because maybe this could be potentially the future for Dragon Ball, and it can get even better as they improve upon their CGI. But I guess I'm gonna leave this video at that. Thank you so much for watching this video. If I give you any form of entertainment and you enjoyed it, please do drop me a like. It does help me out a lot, and I would greatly appreciate it. But with that, thank you so much, everybody. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.